The Woman in the Hallway. I should have known something was wrong when the rent was that cheap. $600 a month for a one-bedroom in the city. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, original crown molding. A building with character, the listing said. Close to the subway, close to everything. The kind of apartment people wait years for, fight over, bribe landlords to get. And there it was, available immediately, no broker's fee. I took it without asking questions. I was desperate. My old roommate had gotten engaged and wanted me out. I had 2 weeks to find a place. And everything in my price range was either a closet in someone's basement or an hour outside the city. This apartment was a miracle. The super, a man named Harold, who looked like he'd been old since the building was constructed, handed me the keys on move-in day. He was quiet, efficient, answered all my questions about garbage pickup and mail delivery and the laundry room in the basement. And then, just as I was about to close the door, he said something that made me pause. "One rule," he said. "Don't acknowledge the woman in the hallway." I laughed. I thought he was joking, some kind of weird hazing ritual for new tenants. What woman? His face didn't change, no smile, no indication that he was anything but completely serious. "You'll see her sometimes, in the hallway, usually at night, but not always. She stands near the stairs. She doesn't move, she doesn't speak, and you don't acknowledge her, you don't look at her, you don't talk to her. You walk past like she isn't there." Is this some kind of joke? No joke. Everyone in the building follows this rule. Everyone who's been here more than a month, anyway. The ones who don't follow it don't stay long. What do you mean, don't stay long? He shrugged. They leave, one way or another. So follow the rule. Don't acknowledge the woman in the hallway. She'll be fine. He walked away before I could ask anything else. I told myself he was crazy. Old buildings attract eccentric people. Maybe he had dementia. Maybe this was some elaborate prank the other tenants played on newcomers. Maybe I'd laugh about it later with the neighbors over drinks. But that night, when I went to take out the trash, I saw her. She was standing at the end of the hallway near the stairs, perfectly still, wearing a white dress that looked like it belonged to another century, high-collared and long-sleeved, the fabric yellowed with age. Her hair was dark and hung past her shoulders, covering most of her face. She was looking at me. I could feel it, even though I couldn't see her eyes through the curtain of hair. I could feel the weight of her attention, the pressure of her gaze. It made my skin crawl, made every instinct in my body scream to run, to hide, to get away from whatever this was. But I remembered what Harold had said. Don't acknowledge her, so I didn't. I walked past, eyes fixed straight ahead like she wasn't there. Like the hallway was empty, like my heart wasn't pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I made it to the trash chute, threw away my garbage, walked back. She was still there. Hadn't moved, still watching. I walked past again, didn't look, didn't speak. Got back to my apartment and locked the door and stood there shaking for 10 minutes. That was 6 months ago. I've seen her dozens of times since then. Sometimes she's near the stairs. Sometimes she's outside my door. Once I came home late and she was standing in the middle of the hallway and blocking the path to my apartment. I had to walk around her so close I could have touched her, and the cold that radiated off her body was like standing next to an open freezer, but I never acknowledged her. I never looked directly at her. I never spoke. And everything was fine. I asked the other tenants about her eventually, the ones who'd been here long enough to know. They all had similar stories. They'd all seen her. They'd all learned the rule. Mrs. Chen on the 3rd floor said she'd been here for 15 years. The woman had been in the hallway when she moved in, and she'd been there ever since. Never aging, never changing, always watching. The couple in 4B, Marcus and James, said they'd tested the rule once, early on before they understood. James had said, "Excuse me," as he walked past, just being polite. He didn't sleep for 3 weeks after that. Nightmares every night. Waking up screaming, covered in scratches that hadn't been there when he went to bed. It only stopped when Marcus went to the hallway and apologized to the woman. Apologized for acknowledging her. Promised it wouldn't happen again. She accepted the apology, Marcus said. I think. She nodded anyway, and the nightmares stopped. What is she? I asked. They looked at each other. The look couples have when they share a secret they're not sure they should tell. We don't know, James finally said. But she's been here longer than the building. That's what Harold says. She was here before any of this was built. And when they put up the building, she didn't leave. She just moved into the hallway, like it was always hers. I did some research after that. The building was constructed in 1923. Before that, the land had been part of a larger estate. The main house had burned down in 1901, killing everyone inside. 7 people, a family. There were photographs in the historical archive, grainy black and white images of the estate before the fire. The family posed on the front steps. In one photograph, standing slightly apart from the others, was a woman in a white dress. Dark hair past her shoulders, face partially obscured, turned away from the camera. I couldn't be sure it was the same woman. The photo was too old, too degraded. But something about the posture, the way she stood, the angle of her head, I was sure. After that, I followed the rule more carefully than ever. I walked with my eyes down, never lingered in the hallway. I never gave her any reason to notice me more than she already did. And for 6 months, it worked. Until last night. I was asleep when it started, a sound that pulled me out of a dream I couldn't remember, a soft, rhythmic sound. Knocked and knock, knock. Someone was at my door. I checked the time. 3:17 a.m. No one knocks at 3:17 a.m. Not with good intentions. I lay there, hoping whoever it was would go away, hoping I'd imagined it. Knock, knock, knock. The same rhythm. Patient. Unhurried. Like whoever was out there had all the time in the world. I got out of bed, crept to the door, looked through the peephole. The hallway was dark. The lights that usually illuminated it were off. But I could see a shape standing outside my door. A pale shape. A white dress. She had never knocked before. In 15 years, Mrs. Chen said, she had never knocked. She stood, she watched, but she never interacted, never reached out, until now. Knock, knock, knock. Her hand was raised, I realized. I could see it through the peephole, pale and thin, knuckles resting against my door. Knocking without urgency, without impatience. Just knocking because she wanted me to know she was there. I didn't answer. Of course I didn't answer. The rule was don't acknowledge her, and answering the door would definitely be acknowledging her. But I couldn't move. I stood there, eye pressed to the peephole, watching her knock. 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 After what felt like hours, she stopped. Her hand lowered. She stood there for another moment, still and silent. And then she tilted her head. Slowly. Deliberately. Like she knew I was watching. Like she could feel my eye on the other side of the door, and through the curtain of dark hair, I saw something I'd never seen before. Her face. I wish I could describe it. I wish I had words for what I saw. But there are no words. There's only the feeling, the wrongness, the sense that what I was looking at wasn't a face at all, but something wearing a face, something that didn't understand how faces worked and was doing its best impression. I stumbled backward, fell, hit the floor hard enough to bruise. When I got back to the peephole, she was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day I tried to convince myself it was a one-time thing, an anomaly. Maybe I'd done something different, broken some subtle aspect of the rule I didn't know about. Maybe she'd knocked on everyone's door at some point, and this was just my turn, and now it was over. But that night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., she knocked again. Knock, knock, knock. The same rhythm, the same patient insistence. I didn't go to the door this time. I stayed in bed, covers pulled up to my chin like a child hiding from monsters. I told myself if I didn't look, it would stop. If I didn't acknowledge even the knocking, she'd lose interest. She knocked for 3 hours. Knock, knock, knock. The same tempo, never speeding up, never slowing down. Just that endless rhythmic demand for attention. At 6:17 a.m., exactly 3 hours after she'd started, she stopped. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face. That horrible, wrong face that wasn't a face at all. The third night, she didn't just knock. Let me in. Her voice came through the door, thin and reedy, like wind through dead trees. I hadn't known she could speak. In 6 months, I'd never heard her make a sound. Let me in. I just want to talk. I'm so lonely. So lonely. I put my pillow over my head, tried to block out the sound. I've been watching you. You're kind. I can tell. You wouldn't leave me out here alone. You wouldn't ignore me like the others. I didn't respond. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Please, please let me in. It's so cold in the hallway. It's so dark. I just want to be warm. I just want to be somewhere that isn't here. She spoke for hours. Her voice never changed, never grew tired or hoarse. Just that same thin, pleading tone. Begging to be let in, begging for acknowledgement, begging for something I couldn't give her. When dawn came, she fell silent. But I knew it wasn't over. I knew she'd be back. The fourth night, she tried something different. I woke to the sound of crying. Soft, broken sobs coming from just outside my door. A woman weeping like her heart was shattered. I told myself it was a trick, that she was doing it on purpose, trying to manipulate me into opening the door. But the crying was so real, so raw, so full of genuine grief. I didn't want to die, she sobbed. I was so young, I had so much life left. And then the fire came and everything burned, and I was alone. I've been alone ever since. 100 years alone. Do you know what that's like? 100 years with no one to talk to, no one to touch, nothing but watching other people live while you just exist. My hand was on the doorknob before I realized what I was doing. I snatched it back, horrified at how close I'd come. The crying stopped. I know you were going to open it, she said, and her voice was different now, not sad, satisfied. I felt your hand on the knob. You're weakening. Everyone weakens eventually. I backed away from the door, sat on my bed, waited for morning. On the fifth night, she changed tactics again. My mother's voice came through the door. Sweetheart, it's Mom. Why won't you let me in? My mother lives 3,000 miles away. My mother has never visited my apartment, but that was her voice. Perfect and familiar, with the slight rasp she'd developed after years of smoking. I came all this way to see you. I'm standing in this hallway and you won't even open the door. Don't you love me anymore? I covered my ears, started reciting the alphabet in my head, anything to drown out the sound. I'm dying, sweetheart. I didn't want to tell you over the phone, but I'm sick. I'm so sick, and I needed to see you one more time before I go. Please, please, let me see your face. I grabbed my phone, called my mother. It was 3 a.m. here, midnight where she lived, but I had to know. She answered on the third ring, sleepy and confused. Honey, what's wrong? Mom, are you okay? Are you sick? What? No, I'm fine. I was just sleeping. What's going on? I almost cried with relief. Nothing, bad dream, I'm sorry I woke you. I hung up. From outside the door I heard laughter. Not my mother's laugh. That static, distorted sound of something pretending to be human. Nice try, the voice said, dropping all pretense of being my mother. But there are other ways. There are always other ways. The knocking continued every night for 2 weeks. She cycled through voices: my mother, my father, my ex-girlfriend, my best friend from college. And she knew things about them, personal things, details I'd never spoken aloud. She used those details to make the voices more convincing, more painful to ignore. She knew about the fight my parents had the night before their anniversary, the one I'd overheard as a child. She knew about the pet hamster I'd accidentally killed when I was 7. She knew about the time I cheated on a test in high school, the shame I'd carried ever since. She knew everything, and she used everything. I stopped sleeping. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice. Every time I drifted off, the knocking would start again. I started seeing things during the day, shadows that moved wrong, faces in windows that disappeared when I looked directly at them. Once, I walked past a reflective surface and saw her standing behind me, hand raised, reaching for my shoulder. When I spun around, no one was there. I was falling apart, losing my grip on reality, and she knew it. I could feel her satisfaction through the door, the patient pleasure of a predator watching its prey weaken. This morning, I went to find Harold. I needed answers. I needed to understand what had changed, why she had knocked, what was going to happen next. He was in the basement doing something with the boiler. He looked up when I came in, and something in his face shifted, like he already knew why I was there. She knocked, I said. He nodded slowly. I wondered when she would. What does it mean? It means she's noticed you, really noticed you, not just as another tenant passing through, as someone specific, someone she wants. Wants for what? He didn't answer. Harold, please, what does she want? The same thing she's always wanted, he said quietly. Company. She's been alone in that hallway for over 100 years, watching everyone else live their lives, go to work, come home, love each other, grow old. And she's just there, frozen, forgotten, alone. So what? She wants to be friends? No, she doesn't want to be friends. She wants to not be alone. There's a difference. I don't understand. The people who acknowledge her, the ones who don't follow the rule, they don't just have nightmares and scratches. That's just the beginning. If they keep acknowledging her, if they give her too much attention, she takes them. Takes them where? Into the hallway with her forever. I felt cold. The basement was warm, the boiler pumping heat, but I felt ice in my veins. How do I make her stop? How do I make her leave me alone? You can't. Once she's noticed you, really noticed you, she doesn't stop. She'll knock again, and eventually you'll answer. Everyone answers eventually. Then I'll move. I'll leave the building. Others have tried. She follows them, not physically, but in dreams, in reflections, in the corner of their eye. Wherever they go, she's there. The only way to escape her is to give her someone else. What do you mean? If she takes someone else, she forgets about you, at least for a while. She can only focus on one person at a time. So you find someone new, someone who'll break the rule, and you let her have them instead. I stared at him. At this old man who'd lived in this building for decades, who had survived by following the rules, by keeping his head down. That's monstrous. That's survival. I left the basement. I didn't know what else to do. I walked back up to my floor, past the spot where she usually stood. She wasn't there now, but I could feel something, a residue, a presence, the knowledge that she'd be back. I spent the day researching, looking for anything that might help. Stories about ghosts, about hauntings, about how to get rid of spirits that won't leave. Most of it was useless. Sage and salt and prayers. Things that might work in movies but felt laughably inadequate against something that had been watching from a hallway for over a century. I found accounts of similar entities. Liminal spirits, one paranormal researcher called them. Beings trapped in threshold spaces, doorways and hallways and staircases. The in-between places where the boundary between here and there grows thin. The researcher theorized that these spirits fed on attention, that acknowledging them gave them power, made them more real, more able to interact with the physical world. That's why the rule existed, not to protect the residents from the spirit, but to starve it, to keep it weak enough that it couldn't do more than watch. But something had changed. Something had given Eleanor enough power to knock, to speak, to use the voices of people I loved. If attention was what she fed on, someone had been giving her plenty. I thought about the other tenants. Mrs. Chen, who'd lived here 15 years. Marcus and James, who'd tested the rule and paid for it. Harold, who'd spent 40 years keeping his head down. Who had been feeding her? The answer came to me slowly, painfully, so I had. Not by looking at her, not by speaking to her, but by thinking about her. Constantly, obsessively. Since the moment Harold told me the rule, I'd been unable to get her out of my head. Every time I walked down the hallway, I was hyper-aware of her presence. Every time I went to sleep, I wondered if tonight would be the night she appeared outside my door. I'd been giving her my attention for 6 months. Not the direct acknowledgement of looking or speaking, but the slow, constant drip of awareness, of fear. And now she was strong enough to want more. But I found one thing, a forum post from years ago, from someone who claimed to have lived in a building with a similar entity. They called it a resident spirit, something so attached to a place that it became part of it, inseparable, eternal. The post said there was only one way to truly banish a resident spirit. You had to find what was keeping it there, the anchor, the thing that tied it to the physical world, and you had to destroy it. For most spirits, the anchor was their remains, their bones, their grave. The woman in the hallway had died in a fire. Her body had been burned. There wouldn't be bones to find, ashes to scatter. But maybe there was something else, something that survived the fire, something that kept her here. I went back to the historical archive, dug deeper into the records of the estate, the family, the fire. The Marsh family had been wealthy, old money, the kind of family that owned half the county and had streets named after them. There were 7 of them in the house the night of the fire, the parents, 4 adult children, and 1 grandchild, all dead. The official cause was a faulty gas line, but there were whispers of something else, an argument, a lantern thrown in anger, a door locked from the outside. The newspaper accounts were vague, but I found letters in the archive, correspondence between investigators, witnesses, neighbors. They painted a different picture. Eleanor Marsh had been different from her siblings. The family called her touched. She saw things that weren't there, heard voices no one else could hear. She'd been kept largely confined to her room, an embarrassment to be hidden away from society. On the night of the fire, she'd been locked in. That wasn't unusual. They often locked her in at night, afraid of what she might do if she wandered. But this time, when the flames started, no one came to let her out. No one remembered she was there. By the time anyone thought to check her room, it was too late. She'd burned alive, locked in her room, forgotten by her own family. I understood now. Why she'd stayed. Why she haunted the hallway instead of moving on. She hadn't just died in the fire. She'd been abandoned, left to burn while her family fled without her. 100 years of rage and grief and loneliness. 100 years of watching people pass through the hallway, the threshold space between here and there, the place she'd been trapped when she died. No wonder she wanted company. No wonder she couldn't let go. The woman's name was Eleanor Marsh. She had been 32 when she died. Unmarried, the youngest of three, her sisters. There was almost nothing written about her. A footnote in the family history. A face half hidden in photographs. But I found one reference that made me pause. An inventory of items recovered from the fire, salvaged from the wreckage before the estate was cleared. Most of it was furniture, silverware, things that could be sold. But one item was listed separately. A mirror. An antique. The notation said it had belonged to Eleanor Marsh, had been in her bedroom. It had survived the fire remarkably intact. The salvage note mentioned that Eleanor had been uncommonly attached to the mirror, that she'd spent hours staring into it, talking to her reflection like it was another person. Talking to someone only she could see. The inventory didn't say where the mirror had gone, but I had a guess. I went back to Harold. The mirror, I said, in the hallway, the one near the stairs, where did it come from? He went pale. It's been there since before I started working here, he said. Since the building was constructed, it was here when they built the place. Original to the property. It's her anchor. It's what's keeping her here. You don't know that. It's the only thing that makes sense. She stands near it. She never goes far from it. And she's been here since 1923. The same year the building went up on top of her family's estate. Someone put that mirror in the hallway, and she's been trapped here ever since. Harold shook his head. Even if you're right, you can't just destroy it. She'll know. She'll stop you. She's going to take me anyway. You said so yourself. Everyone answers eventually. At least if I try to destroy the mirror, I have a chance. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. The mirror is bolted to the wall. You'll need this for the maintenance closet. There's a crowbar in there. I took the key. Why are you helping me? Because I'm tired, he said. I've spent 40 years in this building, following the rules, keeping my head down, watching people come and go. Watching her take the ones who couldn't follow the rules. I'm tired of being afraid. And if there's even a chance you can end this, I want to see it. I waited until midnight. The hallway was quiet. The other tenants were asleep, or at least behind their closed doors. The lights were dim, casting long shadows across the walls. The building felt different at night, older, heavier. Like the walls themselves remembered what had stood here before, what had burned, who had died. I walked slowly toward the mirror. Every step felt like walking through water, resistance building the closer I got. The air grew colder. My breath started to fog. The mirror was where it always was, near the stairs, an antique, just like the record said. Ornate frame tarnished with age, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. The glass was dark, reflecting nothing but shadow. Looking at it, I understood why Eleanor had been drawn to it. It didn't show what was there, it showed something else, something deeper. She was there too, standing beside the mirror, watching me. Her head tilted at that terrible angle, her face hidden behind the curtain of hair. She'd been waiting for me. She'd known I was coming. Of course she had. She'd been watching me for 6 months. She knew me better than I knew myself. I had the crowbar in my hand. I walked toward her. Don't acknowledge her. That was the rule. But the rule was meant to keep you safe, to keep you invisible. I wasn't trying to be invisible anymore. I was trying to end this. I stopped in front of the mirror, in front of her, close enough to touch, close enough to feel the cold radiating off her body, that freezer burn chill that went deeper than temperature. "Eleanor," I said. The temperature plummeted. My breath fogged in front of me. The lights flickered, buzzed, went out completely. In the darkness, I could see her glowing faintly, a pale luminescence that seemed to come from inside her, from whatever she was instead of flesh and blood. "You said my name," she whispered. "No one said my name in 100 years. Eleanor Marsh, I know who you are. I know what happened to you." She didn't move, didn't speak, but I could feel her attention on me like a physical weight, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. "You died in the fire. Your family died. But it wasn't an accident, was it? They left you. They locked you in your room and forgot you were there. They ran away and let you burn." A sound came from her. Not quite a word. Not quite a scream. Something in between. Something that held 100 years of pain. "They said I was crazy. They said I saw things that weren't there, but I wasn't crazy. I could see the other side, the place between places. I could see the things that lived there, and I could talk to them. Through the mirror. It was a window, a doorway. The only place I felt safe, the only place anyone would listen to me. And when you died, you went through it, into the in-between place. I didn't have anywhere else to go. My family had abandoned me. The world had forgotten me. But the mirror remembered. The threshold remembered, and I've been here ever since, stuck between living and dead, real and not real, waiting for someone to see me and someone to acknowledge that I exist. "I see you, Eleanor." She looked up. For the first time, I saw her face clearly. It was beautiful, young. The face of a woman who had died too soon, who had been abandoned by everyone she loved, who had spent a century alone in a hallway waiting for someone to care. But it was also wrong, distorted, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. The proportions shifted as I watched, the features sliding and reforming, unable to settle on a single configuration. She was falling apart, had been falling apart for 100 years, and she was trying so hard to hold herself together. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry you've been alone for so long. But I can't let you take me. I can't let you keep doing this to people." I raised the crowbar. She moved. Not like a person moves, like a glitch. A skip in a film. One moment she was beside the mirror, the next she was in front of me, her face inches from mine, her hair parting just enough to show me what was underneath. That face. That horrible, wrong face. "You broke the rule," she said. Her voice was like static, like radio waves from very far away. It scraped against my ears, my mind, my soul. "You acknowledged me. Yes. You know what happens now. I know what you want to happen, but I'm not going to let it." I swung the crowbar. She caught it. Her hand closed around the metal, stopping it mid-swing. Her grip was impossibly strong, impossibly cold. Frost formed on the crowbar where she touched it. "You can't destroy it," she said. "Others have tried. They always fail." "Maybe. But I have to try." I let go of the crowbar, reached past her, put my hands on the mirror. The cold was indescribable. It burned. I could feel my skin blistering, freezing, dying where it touched the glass. But I didn't let go. I pulled. The mirror didn't move. Eleanor laughed. That static sound, distorted and wrong. "It's been here for 100 years. Do you think you're stronger than 100 years?" "No," I said. "But I'm not trying to be stronger than the mirror. I'm trying to be stronger than you. I pulled harder. The bolts groaned. The wall cracked. Eleanor screamed. A sound like reality tearing. She reached for me, her fingers closing around my throat, the cold spreading through my body. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world was going dark at the edges. But I didn't let go. I thought about everyone she'd taken, everyone who'd answered the door, who'd broken the rule, who'd been dragged into whatever hell she existed in. I thought about the years stretching ahead, an eternity of standing in a hallway, watching, waiting, alone. I would not be one of them. I pulled one more time with everything I had. The mirror came free. It fell, shattered on the floor, 1,000 pieces of glass scattering across the hallway, catching the light that had somehow come back on. Eleanor screamed again. But this time it was different. Not rage, something else. Something that might have been relief. She was fading. I could see through her now, see the wall behind her, the stairs, the scattered glass. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was different too. Human. Young. The voice of a woman who had died over a century ago and was finally being allowed to rest. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just didn't want to be alone. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And then she was gone. The hallway was empty. The mirror was destroyed. The cold was fading, warmth returning to my frozen hands. I stood there for a long time breathing, just breathing. At some point, Harold appeared. He looked at the broken mirror, looked at me, looked at the empty space where Eleanor had stood. "Is it over?" "I think so." "How do you feel?" I thought about it. My hands were burned from the cold, already blistering. My throat was bruised where she'd grabbed me. I was shaking so badly I could barely stand, but I was alive. And the hallway was just a hallway. "I feel free," I said. "That was 3 days ago. The building is different now. I can feel it." The heaviness that I hadn't even noticed until it was gone. The constant, low-level dread that had become so normal I'd stopped recognizing it. Mrs. Chen cried when I told her. 15 years she'd lived in fear, tiptoeing past that spot in the hallway, never looking, never acknowledging. 15 years of her life shaped by a rule that no longer needed to exist. Marcus and James bought me a bottle of wine. We drank it together in their apartment, laughing about things that hadn't been funny at the time. The nightmares, the scratches, the apology James had given to empty air. It's over now, all of it. But sometimes late at night, I still think about Eleanor, about what it must have been like for her. Dying in a fire, waking up in a hallway, watching a century pass while she stayed frozen, unable to move on, unable to let go. She wasn't evil. Not really. She was just lonely. Just desperate, just broken in a way that made her dangerous. I hope she's at peace now. I hope wherever she went when the mirror shattered, it's better than where she was. And I hope wherever she is, she's not alone anymore. My new apartment had one rule: don't acknowledge the woman in the hallway. I followed that rule for 6 months, and then she knocked. And then I had to make a choice. Follow the rules and wait for her to take me, or break them and try to set us both free. I broke them. And now the hallway is just a hallway. The building is just a building. And the woman in the white dress is, finally, after over 100 years, gone. Some rules are meant to keep you safe. Some rules are meant to keep you trapped. The trick is knowing which is which. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is knock back.